Welcome, good morning, mic check, hopefully you can all hear me all right. So here to do a talk today on enterprise asset management. My name is Richard Crampton. I work for Adaptavist as a principal solution architect in the ITAM space. If you don't know who we are, we're an Atlassian Platinum partner in 3 geographies, North America, APAC and EMEA, and we're also Atlassian certified ITSM partner as well. We also have a number of other partnerships, and I'm joined today by Aaron from Device42, who is the global head of Atlassian Go-to-Market, to talk around asset management in the Atlassian space. So we've got quite a large scope of things we want to cover today, so we're looking to deliver this presentation at a high velocity. We're going to start with some of the definitions of asset management and Atlassian's vision, pivot to value streams and how we incorporate those, and we'll show you a few short demos before discussing the elephant in the room and providing details of a customer success story. Aaron will be providing us a bit of history and ethos around Device42, as well as discussing the key tenants of ITAM and CMDB. Wait 1 second.
Oh, it's green.
Yep. 1 second. AV check.
Yeah, that's good.
Perfect. Thank you. Finally, we will end this session with some good practices and key takeaways before taking questions from our good audience. Can you hear all right? It's coming out both of these and the speakers, so whichever works for you is fine. Fantastic. So let's discuss asset management at Atlassian. Let's start at the beginning. So the history of asset management at Atlassian starts with an app that was called Insight. This was available on the Atlassian marketplace by a partner called Riada, and quickly became the go-to solution for asset management with Atlassian. Now, as a relational database, it naturally provided capabilities for IT asset management and CMDB, and Riada spun off their product into a company called Mindville, which was then acquired by Atlassian, who renamed it Assets, and fully integrated it as part of Jira Service Management. So that's where this has come from. Now, when we talk about leveraging the power of assets, obvious use cases, IT asset management, CMDB, service configuration management, everything from laptops, servers, applications, etc. But with a powerful, fully integrated relational database, why don't we go beyond this? How about we think about people records, employees, vendors, suppliers? Atlassian solution engineering teams actually use this to grade their skills so they can understand when someone's needing a call, who is the right person having that call, and then automatically assign tickets on that basis. But why not go even further? Let's change the mindset from IT asset management to enterprise service management, unleashing the potential of every team. Now, ISO's definition of an asset is an item, thing, or entity that has potential or actual value to organization. So for HR, this could be training for teams. For finance, it could be vendors, agreements you have stored, facilities, the assets under their control. But we don't even have to stop there. You can go beyond this and store anything that has potential or actual value to your organization. So according to some industry statistics, only 25% of organizations are realizing full value from their investment in CMDB. If you are not integrating assets with your other practices and into your value streams, you are leaving value on the table. Fundamentally, the value of assets is amplified by combining it with other practices, such as incident management or service request management. So let's explore a couple of use cases to see how this could look. Now, I'm going to start making presumption everyone here today is au fait with the idea of raising an incident against your your company laptop, right? For example, you're at this event and you spill coffee over it. Keyboard stopped working. Now, with asset management fully integrated, you would then be selecting your laptop from a list of assets assigned to you, as opposed to, oh, I need to find the serial number, which is on the underside of the laptop, which I'm using to try and complete the form anyway. So that's the sample use case. But why not think about this the other way around? How can assets help a user requesting a new laptop? Let's see how this might look with a short video demonstration. So we're going to raise a request on behalf of Mitch. We're going to enter a summary and see the prompt for a knowledge article if we want further information. We then go ahead and select the laptop from the supported models. select some accessories, and select shortcuts to install. Once it's submitted, we can see the request has been automatically sent to the requester's manager. From the manager's point of view, we can see that Mitch actually does already have a laptop within the warranty period. And we can see further details of the devices that Mitch has assigned to them. So we saw the list of available laptops, accessories, and shortcuts being pulled from a service catalog stored within Assets. We also saw the ticket being automatically routed to Mitch's manager, Alana, for approval. This automation is being enabled by Assets, this time from the people record, to automatically sign a ticket to the user's manager. And automation can also utilize other information within Assets, surfacing Mitch's assets and confirming whether they're within warranty period or not, in order to provide Alana full visibility and inform better decision making. Indeed, you could go even further than this, maybe limiting the selection of devices available depending on the user's role via defined access policies. So we've just seen service request management with a service catalog. Next, let's have a look at incident, this time with IT operations. In the example we're about to show you, a user is raising an incident against a service that's performing suboptimally. So as usual, we're going to start with a summary and description. We can then select the affected service, as well as providing values for impact and urgency of the ticket. From the responder's perspective, they can see all open incidents linked to this service, and they can drill down to see the architecture, what's making up of this service. Additionally, they can also see if there's any related changes being made to the service and understand what correlation, if any, there are between the changes being made and an incident being reported against the service. So we've seen this user selecting an affected service, billing, which is being pulled from Opsgenie services. For the agent, Assets provided them with a holistic overview of the architecture of the service, enabling to respond to the incident effectively. We also saw the related change ticket against Oracle CRM, which from the makeup we can understand is part of the service architecture. So in this example, Assets is providing rich context to enable the responders to understand and investigate the issue with a higher velocity than otherwise. We've also previously discussed the trend of using Assets outside of typical IT service management. Let's have a look at a classic multi-team value stream, onboarding. In this example, we can see how a manager can kick off onboarding activities and how this drives through to all the other teams that are needed for a good onboarding experience. So the hiring manager enters a summary, and they select the employee they want to onboard and provide a start date for the employee. On behalf of the employee, they select the laptop, accessories, and cloud subscriptions. They also say whether a security badge or a dedicated workspace is needed for the employee before creating the ticket. For the agent picking up the ticket, they see all the information provided, including the cloud subscriptions. Based on these subscriptions, tasks are created for IT to confirm access and update licenses, and tasks are also being created for facilities for the security badge and setting up the new office. So we've seen how a manager created an onboarding ticket for the newest employee, Jennifer, by selecting from a filtered list of people in the status of onboarding, initiating the flow of action. The manager also selected laptop, cloud accessories, cloud subscriptions, similar to what we've seen in the service catalog previously. And we saw how these referenced assets were used to trigger actions for different teams. For IT, for deploying licenses, provisioning access to cloud subscriptions, facilities, doing security badge, and setting up a workspace for Jennifer, All of the activities driven from a single entry point into the value stream, automatically creating the link dependencies and actions that might otherwise get missed in order to give the best possible onboarding experience for Jennifer. And this is just our example. On your onboarding value stream, other teams such as HR or procurement could also be involved as required. So we've now run through some great ways of unlocking additional value using assets. But there's something that we haven't talked about. An elephant in the room, if you will. How do we get the data into assets in the first place to leverage it? So there's two pillars to consider when thinking about importing data into the assets. The first is discovery. What tooling is available to discover assets across the network? The second is integrations. How do we pull in data from our existing sources of truth and integrate this? Let's take a deeper dive into this. So let's start with the API route. There is an open API to assets that's available to use, and historically a number of our customers have used this to develop custom integrations with various sources of truth. If you want to look at the discovery route, there is a discovery tool to run across a local area network and referring devices that is free, provided from Atlassian. Alternatively, you could look at an enterprise solution such as Device 42, which is a standalone CMDB, fully integrates with Atlassian Assets, and provides advanced discovery capabilities. Quick note, other discovery tools do exist on the market. For integrations, you could look at an integration platform as a service, aka iPaaS. Options include Script Runner Connect, which we developed in-house, using out-of-box connectors, allows you to write code for the integrations, or something like Workado, another one of our partners. It may interest you to know that Atlassian themselves use Workado to pull data from their HR source of truth and integrate that internally. There are, of course, as well, lots of marketplace apps available, most of these with specific use case integrations in mind. And last but not least, AirTrack, which we've been really excited about ever since Atlassian announced their acquisition. AirTrack provides 30 out-of-the-box connections, advanced capabilities for data reconciliation, normalization, and deduplication, and will complement everything we've seen in this space. Next, I'd like to briefly talk you through one of our customer journeys with assets for a project that's currently in the second phase of delivery. I'll go over the background and challenges, our approach, and how we co-created value with them. So this customer is one of the oldest and leading banks in East Africa, 3,000 staff, 1 million customers, around £13.5 billion in assets as of last year. The customer uses Jira software, Confluence, Jira Service Management, and we previously worked with them on their transformation to Atlassian Cloud Platform. So we started talking to this customer about a few business challenges they were facing in their IT landscape. Their immediate need, however, resulted from an audit finding which highlighted the disconnected sources of truth regarding assets. They had 4 different products, each with separate stakeholders, each providing different visibility of their estate. So short term, the mission was to provide a unified view for assets. There's also additional concern that their existing sources of truth may not give them full coverage of their entire estate, and it was not integrated with their practices, so they were leaving value on the table. And the strategic vision they had was to provide full coverage for asset management, service configuration management, and licensing. Last but not least, they want to consolidate and normalize the data from multiple sources of truth. So how do we approach these challenges with the client? Well, first, we start with a needs discovery exercise to understand the current state, local infrastructure, and where they wanted to go. We also need to understand the business drivers behind, not just the what, but the why. Next, rather than being fully prescriptive, based on what we've heard, we map the options into a balanced scorecard for the client, comparing features, pros and cons, against their short, medium, and longer-term objectives. Finally, we worked with the client to discuss in depth the output of these findings. We then collaborated with them to reach a consensus on the best solution for their overall vision. So what was the outcome for this? Well, Device 42 was selected. Why? Well, based on where the client wanted to go longer term, Device 42 was seen as the best solution that met that, while exceeding their capabilities in the medium and short term. The ability for Adaptavist to go beyond the typical use cases, understand the client problems and the wider product estate, deliver solutions that drive real value, mean that we need strong partnerships in order to achieve this. And with that, let me hand over to Aaron from Device 42.
Thank you, Richard. Hi, everyone. All right, so a little bit about Device 42. Um, First, Device 42 has built an integration. We're a discovery tool set. We built an integration with Atlassian JSM. So all of the data and workflows that you saw Richard demonstrate, those can be driven by the data that Device 42 discovers. So a little bit about us, you know, gold standard of agnostic CMDB and ITAM, that's a bold statement, right? So what have we done to earn those credentials? Well, Device 42 has been partnering with GSIs for many years, going into very, very complex accounts and making sense of their environment. So things like a data center migration or a cloud migration or an application portfolio analysis. Major, major changes. GSIs need to be empowered with the data to be able to make these major changes into an estate. So what we've done is built a tool that is capable of making those major changes and giving those GSIs as well as other consulting partners the ability to make those changes. Okay, so as a result of that, we've built up a knowledge base that has been just continued to evolve Device 42 as a product so that it's more and more capable. So every single engagement we learn on, and that goes into our product. So some of our customers, we have many customers throughout the world, several in the UK, government entities, very, very large enterprises. Device 42 has been deployed in over 70 different countries. So we have a strong base of customers today. And really, the reason that customers come to us is really one thing. They're looking for a single source of truth. And that single source of truth is in question. There are a number of different tool sets that are deployed inside that customer's estate, sometimes 30, sometimes 50 different tools. And those tools, despite having all of this data, they aren't able to make sense of it and they aren't able to manage their changes. So Device 42 aggregates all of those data points and pulls it into a single view. So when we talk about a single source of truth, that data has to be reliable and it has to be trustworthy and it has to be embedded into your processes. But in order to get there, you have to have the advocacy of these teams. Typically, it's the cybersecurity team, it's the service delivery team, but everyone has to adopt that. So that just goes back to the point that the data needs to be trustworthy and it needs to be actionable. So in order to build that, and think of this list as a sequential list. Oftentimes, a customer is looking at us in the early stages of an ITSM deployment. They say, I just need my assets. I need to understand where my laptops are deployed. Certainly, that's the beginning. But those needs evolve as you mature as an ITSM. So the next thing that they typically want is a software inventory. And then they'll want to get into the virtual and physical dependencies. You know, if I have a VMware server go down, a physical piece of hardware, what does that impact from a virtual perspective? And what are the downstream business impacts? So all of that data evolves as you go. So you really need a tool set that's able to discover your environment comprehensively and have the depth of data to be able to be trustworthy to these downstream teams. So we believe that that's not going to be accomplished with a single approach. You have to have agents, but you can't put an agent on an iPhone in many cases. So you need to be able to pull that data in through an external integration. So we have built a tool set that basically combines agent-based discovery, agentless discovery, as well as external integrations. So how does it work? Well, we built this single source of truth, and we use these different protocols and methods on the left-hand side. That is the data that we use to pull in to Device 42, and we bring that into Device 42 where we normalize that data, deduplicate it, create the relationship. So that's where your CMDB is created. And then we push that data downstream into ITSMs, as well as automation workflows, a number of different scenarios, whether they're off the shelf or completely customized. You have an open API with Device 42, so you can really do anything. Now, when we talk about, on the previous slide, I spoke of the breadth and depth of discovery. And that's really this. So over time, we've had to build a very, very strong breadth of discovery. So all of these different technologies that you see on the screen, those are covered with Device 42 natively. So you'd be hard-pressed to find, I would encourage you to look hard, but you'd be hard-pressed to find something that is not covered that is probably in your estate. When we talk about AWS discovery as an example, we discover over 100 AWS services, and we can also do that through role-based discovery. So we can discover a multitude of different accounts, as well as the associated services, as well as the instances as well. So it's really, really powerful being able to see all of that data inside of JSM. But it's not just about the breadth of discovery, it's also about the depth of discovery. So these are some of the data elements that we pull in. So obviously on the left-hand side, you're going to see things like the CPU and compute data, disk, memory, that sort of stuff, kind of the basics. But we'll even get into the database servers that are running and the instances that are on that specific shared database. So if you have an application that has maybe a shared database server that's shared amongst 100 different applications, you're able to isolate the different areas of concern to the business and the applications that are associated with those database instances. So if you're going to make a change, you can understand the potential impact. So it's very powerful. But when you move over to the side, there's the bare metal components, there's the virtual and physical relationships, there's the application dependency mapping. So we're able to use NetStat to be able to understand the communication patterns inside of the estate. And that helps us to infer those business relationships. So the idea here is really to minimize the manual effort and give you the insight as the practitioner to be able to see what are the potential impacts of a change. Okay. The other thing that we'll do that's very interesting is we understand the resource utilization of these assets. So in many cases, workloads or servers are over-provisioned. Maybe the requester requests a 16 CPU and 64 gigs of RAM, only to profile it, and they're only using 2 CPUs. That gives you the ability to get some cost savings, right-size those workloads, and all that can be automated through workflows through JSM. So really the sky's the limit. The other thing that we get into more on the enterprise side is the enterprise storage. And that enterprise storage allows you to map all the way from the entry point to a business application, say the website. It allows you to map all the way through that 3-tier application, all the way down to the physical spindles that are supporting that database server. It's very, very, very powerful. But I also spoke of the various integrations that we have. So the integrations are really key because people are using tools like AirWatch or Jamf or Intune. And that's really how we're going to pull in some of those mobile devices. So they've already deployed these solutions. Device 42 can integrate into those and pull that data into Device 42 where we normalize and create the relationships so you do have that comprehensive inventory. Okay. It's also worth noting that in more of the complex enterprises, they're going to maybe deploy a privileged access management solution. Maybe it's SSH keys or maybe it's CyberArk. We support both of those as well, so you can maintain those high levels of security even though you're doing discovery as well. So let's get back to the business value. So the specific use case that Richard mentioned was around IT audit. We're seeing this as a big trend inside of the market today. So that trend is that IT is constantly being audited, and it's a significant impact from a personnel perspective while we're trying to reduce cost and reduce manual effort. So Device 42 has the ability to extract that data and give you, as the practitioner, as well as the internal audit teams, the data that they need in order to address those audits. But then we push that data into JSM that we've spoken of, but we also we support things like data center infrastructure management. So the management of where those physical assets are in your data center, you're able to map all of that back as well. And then lastly, migration and modernization. So those are those major changes that I originally spoke of. So if there's a major change, maybe you're exiting a data center, you have the data that you need in order to make informed decisions. So it really serves all of those audiences that I mentioned at the beginning. It gives them the data that they need in order to do their jobs better. Okay? Thank you very much. I'll hand back to you, Richard.
Perfect. Thanks, Aaron. Okay, mic check. So, thank you, Aaron, for that insight. Really interesting. Let's wrap this talk up. I'm going to leave you a few good practices and key takeaways to think about. So, let's start with the good practices. We've already seen through the short demos how powerful assets can be when combined with their other practices. Look for ways to utilize assets to optimize and automate actions within your value streams. Secondly, really do look to understand your landscape and the different sources of truth that you have. Evaluate what the best way is to pull that data in so you have that single pane of glass view. And finally, this is an ITIL guiding principle, think and work holistically. Create a vision and then break that down into phases that can be delivered iteratively using an agile approach. Time to value is paramount. Now let's end with a few takeaways. First, remember that Assets is a relational database. But think beyond ITAM or service configuration management. As we noted, ISO's definition is anything that has potential or actual value. We saw an example of people records that can be combined with a service catalog by way of access policies. Likewise, you could have facilities, but how about something else? How about business logic? Many people use matrix calculations for calculating priority. What's my impact? What's my urgency? Why not store all of those within Assets, whereby you can make easy changes that are fully auditable, reducing technical debt? Alternatively, how about extending the service catalog to, let's say, change? Store all the standard changes from a service catalog, pull them out, and all the associated tasks you need to deliver. The limit here really is only your imagination and creativity. Next, take an opportunity to enact some real cultural change by trying to break down silos in your operations. In our onboarding example, we have value creation flowing across multiple teams from a single entry point. Now, in isolations, teams tend to focus on what's the input and what's the output, without understanding what value looks like at the end of that chain. If they can see the big picture, they can understand the input that they have to the creation of value. Lastly, please consider customer advocacy. Either bring your customers into design or have someone advocate for them. We have seen far too many examples of really great technical solutions, but do not take into consideration the other dimensions of service management. Think about how your customers want to interact with you, not just how you want to interact with them.